Our story starts with a man sitting on a throne, and we are told that in this vast universe there are many dangerous creatures. To complicate matters, every 1,000 years a disaster comes to this divine land. We also find out that this time the earth will turn into hell, and that only the winner of the Tian Gang tournament has a chance to stop the disaster. A boy with an angry face tells the sitting man that he knows what he has to do. Then the scene cuts to the modern world, and we meet our protagonist Chang Tian, who tells us about his life. He is 20 years old and he is in his second year of college. He lives with his parents and his hobby is sinology, which is the study of Chinese language, history, and customs. His mother calls him to dinner, but he ignores her and his father is forced to fetch him. His father knows all about his side gig of reading people's fortunes and scolds him for that. In retaliation, he gets cheeky with his dad and just misses getting kicked to the face because his dad answers a phone call. His dad has a book signing to go to as he is a famous sinologist himself, like father like son, and says he will be gone for 2 weeks. Chang Tian thinks his dad underestimates him and says he can really read people's fortunes. He Googles a library with sinology books nearby and finds one close by. When he gets there, the place is deserted, but he goes in. Suddenly he starts to hear weird whispers and the lights start to flicker, so he runs out thinking that the place is haunted. Scared AF, he does manage to grab a book on his way out. He is happy with his book find, but his joy is short-lived. A girl runs into him as she tries to escape from a group of guys that are chasing her. They catch up with her and start going ham on her, and Chang Tian notices that the main guy, Li Cheng, studies at his college. He is afraid of him and he decides to run away, but sees that his book has fallen right at the feet of the gang. Crap. The bully finds the book and starts to mock Chang Tian and says that he will be keeping it as toilet paper. As if that wasn't enough, he calls Chang Tian a fortune-telling fraud. This gives Chang Tian the boost he needs to fight back, even if it's just for a second. He kicks him in the bums, grabs the book, and runs away. He runs for his life and manages to outrun him, or at least that's what he thought, because Mr. Bully Supreme catches up to him. But Chang Tian manages to duck just before getting hit and accidentally pantses the guy, and everyone around starts taking pictures of the sudden nudist. Pervert move, saves the day. Taking advantage of the distraction, he runs away once again. As he celebrates his escape, a deafening noise echoes around him, and out of nowhere a glowing barrier forms around him in the shape of a ball. He's confused, we're confused, and Mr. Bully Supreme enters the chat with a giant freaking warrior at his side. He says he erected a barrier and that there was no way for him to escape. He also says that he has a power far beyond human knowledge and makes the giant at his side throw Chang Tian around like a rag doll. Add in some magical chops and kicks to the body and Chang Tian is in bad shape. After more humiliations and insults, he tells the giant to finish him off. Chang Tian closes his eyes and says, "I don't want to die yet." When he reopens them, he's in a completely different place with glowing water under his feet and a giant gate in front of him. He wonders if he passed on. When he touches it, he hears a voice asking if he wishes to not die, and then with a flash of light, we are back in the fight zone with Bully Supreme and his giant enforcer. Then a light comes out of Chang Tian, and that light reveals a handsome long-haired man. This excites the giant, who says that he hasn't had a good fight in years and that now he finally was going to have some fun. By the way, they are weapons because the giant says he is a Xuan level sword and asks what weapon he is. Long-haired bro replies that he didn't deserve to know and that would finish him off easily. And as it was said, so it was done. He dodges some attacks from the giant, who calls himself Long K Ring Sword. Mystery Guy stops the sword attack with just one finger. He carries Chang Tian to safety and heals his wounds with just one touch. Chang Tian tells this Mr. Mystery, who just saved him, to be careful because a powerful attack was coming as the giant launches a blast with his sword that ends up missing them by miles. This man, the handsome stranger, then asks Chang Tian if he was prepared because he was the one who summoned him. He then throws a gigantic glowing energy ball at the giant, defeating him and leaving a crater on the spot. This man is surprised that Chang Tian could summon him, having so little spiritual power. But he doesn't understand what he's talking about and is just happy that now his father will see him differently and maybe even be proud of him now that he has this sacred holy weapon. That bully, who was the giant's master, starts running away. He's seriously hurt and ends up falling and then disintegrating, and a mysterious girl says she finally found something with a slight smile. The scene cuts with Chang Tian having a dream where he kisses his holy weapon. Kissing his weapon is weird, and as we don't know his name yet, I'll just call him that, and wakes up screaming in despair. Looking to the side, he realizes that his holy weapon was sleeping naked with him in bed, making him scream loud enough to scare the birds. He complains to the weapon for the unexpected nudity, calls him hentai, and then the scene cuts to them on the street, and Chang Tian asking his name and imagines that he was a strong weapon for having so easily defeating that giant, but he says he didn't remember that, and that his memory loss was a sign that his master was very weak and practically rubbish. Burn! Chang knows little to none about what's going on. Chang Tian didn't even know what spiritual power is. The silly boy decides to call him White because he is wearing white. Weird. His mom calls him and says that a beautiful girl is waiting to see him. He quickly hides White and discovers that this girl says she is his classmate and her name is King Chu. She says the teacher asked her to bring him some schoolwork, but says she also wanted to talk to him in person, alone and outside. Sounds weird, but okay. That's suspicious. The two walk down the street, which isn't a very smart place to set up a conversation. This is definitely an ambush, but not a violent one. Two other people surround him, and she says she knew about him summoning a certain strange someone yesterday, and she knew that he didn't like his weapon, and his weapon didn't like him, so she asked Chang Tian to give White to her, but Mr. Mystery himself quickly appears and says that this was his decision to make, and for Chang Tian to be aware that this was no ordinary girl but a goddess. He approaches the goddess and begins to seduce her, calling her beautiful and asking if she was free to go to his house. One of the two other people who ambushed Chang Tian gets jealous and annoyed, demanding he stops bothering their mistress or he would teach him a lesson, but White teases him, almost inciting a fight that is interrupted by Chang Tian, who explains to the girl that he was not going to sell his weapon. He takes White away from all the drama. As they relax in Chang Tian's room, White finally explains just what the heck is going on. He says that in this world there is a Shang Yuan arsenal that appeared before humans existed and stores weapons from all time periods. Some were made by legendary blacksmiths, others wielded by heroes, and there are even the ultra-rare sacred holy weapons. He explains that they have 4 levels of classification, but according to legends, there is a secret level above all called Sacred Greater. He says that as he is beautiful and all-powerful, he is obviously a sacred weapon, but as he was invoked by a weakling, it has clouded his memory and given him limited powers equaling a level 3 weapon, and continues to say that people who can invoke weapons from this arsenal are called spiritual warriors. The scene cuts to that girl goddess from before called King Chu thinking to herself that spiritual warriors are people with spiritual powers, and that normally people with spiritual powers only appear in the nobility, and wonders how Chang Tian manages to have it too. She says that as a spiritual warrior, she has been preparing her whole life for the Tian gang trial, and then the scene goes back to Chang Tian's bedroom. White explains that the Tian gang trial is basically a battle royal where all the warriors and their weapons fight each other, and whoever wins would have the right to infinite desires or wishes fulfilled by the gods. Upon hearing this, Chang Tian gets excited and says he wants to try and win. Now back to our girl goddess. She says that she needs to win at all costs and would find a way to get White for herself, as she needs as many weapons as possible to ensure she gets the glory of God. She gets angry with Chang Tian and starts stalking and harassing him, calling him all hours of the day and night and writing various threats on the front door of his house. She even drops pamphlets from helicopters with slanderous rumors and unaliving threats and demands. This reaches a point where he meets her, but once again denies that he would sell his weapon to her because White was his partner and the two would participate in the trial, and with White's power level they would easily win. Upon hearing this, King Chu gets highly offended. After all, she trained her whole life for this tournament and tells him not to think that the test is a little game. Remember that guy who hangs out with her and who got so upset at White's attempted seduction of her? Well, he isn't just a part of her crew. He and the other redhead girl are her weapons, and she activates them to fight against Chang Tian, who activates his weapon or he activates himself. I don't know. All I know is every time someone insults Chang Tian, he gets flashes of his father berating him. Damn, talk about the effects of childhood trauma. Our boy's got daddy issues. Anyway, back to the scene. They keep arguing and then the fight begins. Soon the King Chu realizes that he is stronger than he looks, being at least a level 3 weapon. White says that the 2 weapons he was fighting were level 4, the highest. Chang Tian asks if he would be okay, and he replies that if it's for a moment he can withstand 2 level 4s. King Chang calls herself careless, saying that this weapon is much more powerful than it looks, and makes a worried face. The anime switches to a shot showing both Chang Tian and King Chu, both concentrating deeply, showing us how close the fight was. However, something unexpected happens. Out of nowhere, a strange guy appears with a confident face, asking if he should enter the battle as a Tianzin Hall representative, whatever that means. Haha. The scene cuts showing the context of this new mysterious guy's arrival. He and his brother converse about not being allowed to be there, but as long as they catch King Chu, they won't get into trouble. Then he jumps into battle just like in the previous scene, and his brother arrives there too. Apparently King Chu already knew him because she says she is fed up with being harassed by him, and he in response says that she continues to ignore their kindness, and even though their leader may tolerate it, he will not. He then turns to Chang Tian and mocks him, saying that his weapon wasn't even level 4, so he has no interest in it, and if he stayed out of their way, he would let him live. Chang Tian responds, saying that this Tianzin Hall looks like a place with many powerful weapons, and this one guy called O Tian Bro summons his weapon, a powerful level 4 weapon full of personality, even complaining about his master having summoned him before he could wash his face, and when he saw King Chu, his weapon was ashamed, thinking it was not presentable. Kigsing Long Yuan is the name of the weapon in thought. Chang Tian thinks that nobody knows the real power of White, so he should be able to handle it, and starts a speech citing 3 mistakes that O Tian Bro made. However, before listing the third and most critical, White interrupts him because found the whole speech to be rather boring, and he doesn't want to wait any longer to fight, and the action starts again. O Tian's brother invokes his weapon, who is called Yu Chang, and uses her against White. Meanwhile, King Chu's weapons fight against the weapon from O Tian Bro, the Kigsing Long Yuan. It's so hard to say these Chinese names, right? Such long and confusing names. Alright, back to the battle. I just know that the fight extends to the point where Chang Tian realizes that it would be bad to continue because all the weapons were running out of energy. King Chu also quickly realized their dilemma and asked her 2 weapons to use their ability and end the fight once and for all. They are the perfect duo. The male weapon uses his skill called Psycho Drain, which debuffs O Tian's weapon, while the woman debuffs White with her skill, thereby making them weaker. At least I think that's what happened. In a voiceover, the anime explains that in terms of combat melee, their attacks leave something to be desired, but their skills are all top of the line, and combined they are practically invincible. O Tian and his brother decide to withdraw because they were at a disadvantage, and Chang Tian, being the petty king that he is, teases him, saying that if he ran away now, he would let him live. O Tian, enraged, says that they would remember this insult and come back for revenge. White is sad, saying that he was about to use his true skill, and after the danger is gone, King Chu and Chang Tian form a temporary alliance, which leads to a very funny and cute moment between King Chu and Chang Tian. The scene cuts to the base of those who fled with O Tian. His brother and their weapons apologize for causing problems and not being able to defeat the mysterious weapon. Their leader asks who is the master of that weapon, and they answer that he is an unpredictable boy called Chang Tian, and that he heard that he gained his powers on the verge of death. The scene cuts to them in a restaurant. Talking about the same subject, King Chong explains that an invocation by death happens when a spiritual warrior is on the verge of death, in which case he can summon a weapon from the Shang Yuan arsenal. But most spirit warriors invoke in another way through a formal ceremony. And because King Chu's weapons are husband and wife, she managed to summon both with a single scroll. However, after invoking a level 4 weapon, a restriction applies, so she cannot summon another weapon of the same kind as a rejection may occur. After understanding, he asks what exactly the Tianzin Hall is and what they wanted. She says that as far as she knows, it has existed for a long time, hundreds of years, and was formed by weapons. The scene cuts back to the meeting happening in Tianzin Hall. Their conversations continued where we left off. They say that their objective is to recover all the weapons made by the man they call father. They say that he has a good relationship with King Chu's weapons, and that they should avoid fighting her as much as possible. Tian's brother, who was present in the battle before, says that King Chu, despite being 16 years old, has already become very powerful and is almost invincible since awakening as a spirit warrior and summoning 2 level 4 weapons. She definitely shouldn't be underestimated. Then, a girl who wasn't at the battle starts bad-mouthing her, calling her several rude names because she says King Chu only thinks about winning the Tiangang trial. But another character starts defending King Chu. He says that King Chu will probably unite with Chang Tian as it's hard to win if she's alone, and the scene cuts showing her inviting Chang Tian to join her. She explains that since he helped fight Tanzan Hall, they must have marked him and would now be going after him now too, so the two should join forces. She also explains that the tournament is dangerous because the warriors, when they lose their weapon, end up going to the underworld too, so they would be stronger together. Chang Tian makes a worried and surprised Pikachu face because he didn't know that your weapon losing a battle means that you lose your life. The episode ends with the guys from Tianzan Hall saying that now that the two joined forces, they should be even more careful in the trial. Also, a strange hooded man was eavesdropping on them from a tree outside. I also just realized the leader of Tianzan Hall reminds me of Dr. Evil, the way he sits and strokes his cat. And back at the diner, Chang Tian was still shaken by the fact that spirit warriors cease to exist when their weapons are defeated, meaning Mr. Supreme Bully from his college bit the dust at the same time as his giant back during their battle in the park. His weapon, White, doesn't mince words, and says that if he's scared, it's best to transfer him to King Chu and then go hide under a rock. That's brutal, bro. But Chang Tian mans up and declares he will participate. King Chu celebrates the beginning of their team and takes the two to her house. Arriving there, he is surprised to see that she lives in a mansion with many servants at her beck and call. Chang Tian, being the mama's boy that he is, says he needs to talk to his mother first, but when he opens the door, surprise, he sees that she was already there, waiting for him. He is very surprised and quickly gets embarrassed watching his mom enjoying herself, but King Chu says it's not a problem. She takes Chang Tian by the arm, says she needs to speak to him alone, and takes him to another room. She explains that she brought his mother there, fearing that their enemies would go after his relatives. She says that she invited his father too, but he seemed too busy to join them. Chang Tian quickly changes the subject. Damn those daddy issues. Anyway, she says that since she can only summon 2 level 4 weapons, she wanted Chang Tian to summon 1 more so that they would have better odds in the trial. He says he didn't have money for that, but King Chu was happy to play the investor and give him the funds. And so the summoning begins. He says the magic words and, oops, unfortunately he can only summon a little girl with power level 3, and when he sees her, White laughs at her but feels provoked by what she says, and the two almost fight. This weapon is called Fang Tian Huaji and says she served a general called Fang Xin, and Chang Tian says he knows all the historical facts about him. He was a great general and conqueror of his time, and hearing about her former master again, she is happy. She says that her greatest regret is not having been able to protect him, and that would not happen again with her current master. The maid enters and informs them that dinner is served. They are taken to the dining room where Chang Tian's mother has prepared a glorious meal consisting of several dishes that's so good it makes everyone's mouth water. After dinner, while walking on the grounds, they run into other weapons that Fang Tian seems to have a history with. And these weapons ask if King Chu had summoned her too. Suddenly she starts to tussle with one of the other weapons, and they have to be pulled apart. This whole debacle leaves Chang Tian rather sweaty, and out of nowhere a maid pops up and asks if they need a bath. Talk about 24/7 service with a smile. The scene cuts to King Chu taking a bath in the hot springs. She is forced to hide when she sees Chang Tian and White walking into the bathhouse. Both get into the water and Chang Tian ends up sitting on top of her thinking she's a comfy bench. But then he remembers that one should always shower before entering the hot springs, and he and White leave to do just that. She takes the opportunity to eavesdrop on their conversation. White asks why he's helping her, and he replies that even though he had a bad impression of her at first, he couldn't just sit by and watch 2 men bully a girl. Besides, she was worried about his family and invited his mother to her house to protect her, and he says he's very grateful to her for that, and that's why he will keep helping her. She gets all embarrassed, says that she doesn't need any help, and leaves. The scene cuts with Chang Tian's mother deciding to go back home. She explains that she had her shop to run and couldn't leave his father alone for too long. King Chu says she could come back whenever she wanted and jokes that she really wants to eat her food again. After his mother leaves, she tells Chang Tian that his weapon Fang Tian would be trained by her two weapons, the duo, while she had prepared a special training for him, and that White would rest and recuperate. The following scenes show him training, fighting, and learning as much as possible. The next scenes in the anime shows White lying on a medical bed with several tubes attached to his body. He was being examined by another weapon. This weapon says that even though he is a sacred weapon, if he continues to fight in this condition, it could be bad. He says he knows, but he has no choice. The scene cuts to the city with King Chu, Chang Tian, and the duo weapons heading to a sinology library. Chang Tian runs ahead excited. His excitement reminds her two weapons, the duo named Mo Yi the woman and Ganjiang the man, of their child, and the two end up feeling sad because they remember the son they had in their past life. This son suddenly appears behind them saying that they abandoned him in his past life and would abandon him again. His name is Mei Jianqi. When they see him, they imagine that he is the reincarnation of their son, and the boy invokes a weapon to attack them. The scene cuts to White Man telling Chang Tian to return to his training because enemies could attack him, and almost immediately after that White says he can feel a strong spirit power, and the scene quickly cuts to King Chu raising a magical barrier to battle. Their son says he has no problem removing them from the face of the earth as they had previously abandoned him. Ganjing says he would go first and assumes his battle form, then he starts defending himself against the attacks of the boy's mysterious weapon, who says it's impressed that he dodged the attack and calls itself an ancient weapon named Taigsu armor. After seeing her husband taking damage, Mo Yi also enters the battle, and as soon as they start fighting, King Cheng tells them to use their skill. They use it, but it has no effect on Taigsu, who blocks their attack as it is an upper-level weapon. By their shocked faces, it's clear to see that no one saw this coming. Taigsu imagines that this was their last resort and says he was disappointed because a last resort should be much more powerful, and launches an ultra-strong attack to show how it should be. Bro looks devilish and laughs like a complete psycho while doing this. However, his master, the boy, ends up shouting at him because he almost hit him with that crazy attack. He asks if he should continue, and the boy says yes. Hurry up and delete them all. In an attempt to end everything, the weapon launches a powerful attack, but Chang Tian appears in the nick of time and saves King Chu by pushing her out of the way of the attack. White quickly puts a protective barrier over his master and King Chu, and in doing so the holy level weapon recognizes him. Meanwhile, the boy happily encourages his weapon by dancing and chanting code 187 everybody, when suddenly a soft voice whispers to him, "Your power is much more than that." And the boy begins to freak out and maybe get a migraine, or at least it seems like it, making his weapon withdraw to take him away to safety. Moi calls him my child, but the weapon says he hasn't been their child for ages. Chang Tian asks Miss Chu why the boy hates her, and the scene cuts to them at home, where Mo Yi explains that he wasn't always like that. She tells a giant complicated story, and thanks to the very confusing subtitles, I didn't understand her story at all. So it's no use trying to explain it to y'all. What matters is that there was a lot of bullpoot betrayal, angry evil kings, war, blood, many swords being made, old men, decapitation, revenge, sacrifice, and those kinds of things. It's kinda difficult to understand as I don't speak Chinese. Anyway, Chang Tian seems to understand, and so after hearing the explanation, he says that he thinks that during the process of reincarnation, the soul of the evil king from the story was mixed with the old man and their sons inside the boy's body, so his spirit is unstable, as if he has more than one personality inside his body. I guess that's it. Okay, it's just a classic case of multiple personality disorder. Mo Yi asks if he had any idea how to solve this, but Chang Tian says no, and King Chu says that while they try to figure it out, they should avoid fighting the Taigsu armor because it was too powerful, despite White saying he would beat it with one hand if he had his true power. The episode ends with Chang Tian waking up to answer a call from his father, asking how long he was going to hang around there, being lazy, doing nothing, you know, the regular fatherly affection of a dad who's too busy to care. The next scene introduces King Chu lounging on a sofa with a peculiar dude whose eyes are playing hide and seek. He was eager to include Chang Tian in their little gathering, but Chu shut down the idea, citing Chang Tian's absence from her home. The mysterious masked man regretfully noted that Chang Tian could have been a gold mine of info about Liu Xiaoqi, the son of Mo Yi and Gan Jiang. You know, that weird child who looks like Chucky who they fought earlier. Meanwhile, Fang Tian and White were in what seemed like Chang Tian's room. On the other side of the drama, Chang Tian was facing off with his old man. Dad was on a detective mission, wondering why Chang Tian hadn't been home or dialed in. Chang Tian played the responsible card, explaining he'd already filled his mom in and wasn't goofing off. However, his dad had conspiracy theories brewing. He suspected Chang Tian of wooing a wealthy Chu girl and doing some Sherlock-level research on her background. Dad dropped the bomb, commanding Chang Tian to steer clear of King Chu. This set Chang Tian off so much that he unleashed his frustration by punching a poor post outside, despite the inevitable pain. This takes us to the next part, which is also the earlier scene. The masked man goes by Mr. Yi and he spills the beans that Liu Xiaoqi often does shady stuff. The guy controlling him is Zhan Lu, the big shot in Tianzin Hall, also known as the Righteous Sword according to Chu. Mr. Yi explains that Zhan Lu summoned him through a dark ceremony, a spooky ritual where they sacrifice a person to call forth a weapon with no mercy, ready to wipe out everyone. He says he was invited to Tianzin Hall to witness how Zhan Lu tricked Mo Yi and Gan Jiang's son, the Chucky child. All I can understand is that this stuff is really confusing. But Mr. Yi tells Chu that to see Zhan Lu's full skills, apparently there's a catch. And just when things are about to get intense, Chu gets a message from Liu Xiaoqi with a picture of him smiling while 3 people behind him are tied together surrounded by fire. Mo Yi can't handle her child's actions, so she rushes to find him, closely followed by her husband. Mr. Yi advises Chu to go after her sacred weapons, and what does she do? Well, she calls Chang Tian for help, urging him to hurry back without filling him in on the exact details. While they search for the pyromaniac psycho child, Mo Yi, Gan Jiang, and King Chu find themselves trapped in a ward. Just as she's about to call Chang Tian, her phone gets struck by a spear. Uh-oh, they've been ambushed. Then she spots Liu Xiaoqi with his holy weapon and another person, whose identity she's unsure of. The unknown person, a blind-looking girl, claims to be there on her chairman's order, which turns out to be Zhan Lu's, with the directive to bring Chu to the Tianzin Hall. Chu deliberately refuses, leading to a confrontation with the girl, who insists on fighting Chu alone. The crazy kid also reveals that he's not with Tianzin Hall but says that the closed-eye girl can do whatever she wants, and he's just there to watch the show. Mo Yu tries to talk after her child, but he tells her to zip it or lose her life. Issues. Her husband suggests focusing on the battle. Funny thing, I thought the closed-eye girl was blind, but turns out she's not. Chu gets spooked because this girl is on the same power level as the Taixu armor. Chu's holy weapon kicks into high gear. Meanwhile, White and Chang Tian are on a mission to find Chu. White tells Chang Tian about this cool trick called harmony installation where the master and the holy weapon become one. That's probably what happened to this powerhouse closed-eye girl. No wonder she's so strong. After a bit of back and forth in their clash, Gan Jiang takes a hit to the shoulder, and the girl manages to overpower Chu's holy weapon. The girl then invites Chu to join her without any restrictions to prevent more damage to her weapons, but Mo Yi and Gan Jiang strongly disagree. Both Mo Yi and Gan Jiang continue the fight with the girl, giving it their all. Meanwhile, Chu suddenly has a moment of self-reflection and, for some reason, starts throwing insults at herself. It's a bit cringy, but she manages to stop the girl from destroying her weapons and pleads to end the battle. Out of nowhere, a light starts shining in the background and Mo Yi and Gan Jiang express their love for Chu, declaring her as their own as if she's their real child, even though their original child is watching them say this. No wonder he hates them. Anyway, out of the blue, the 3 of them get naked. Miss Chu and her 2 weapons, petals start falling on them out of nowhere and things get all lovey and romantic in a dramatic kind of way. The episode wraps up with Chu transforming herself into a harmony installation with her weapons. Now that she's transformed, Chu becomes incredibly powerful, scaring the heck out of her enemy. Her final words are "get ready to pay." Meanwhile, intruders infiltrate King Chu's house following the chairman's orders. all while Chu is on the brink of battling the closed-eye girl elsewhere. Suddenly, Fang Tian shows up above the intruders. Turns out White and Chang Tian foresaw this, suspecting enemies might invade Chu's home, so they came up with a plan when White sensed the approaching threat. During the fight, the guy can't seem to focus on anything other than Fang Tian's WeChat number, like seriously. He is obsessed. It becomes his battle mantra. The rest of the infiltrators assume the defense has weakened and they dash towards the entrance, only to be met by White standing guard. White's team swiftly wipes out the intruders. Talk about a well-executed plan. As the baddies lay hurting on the ground, one is arrogant enough to insult White, and he deletes them all instantly. Off Whitey. Chang Tian is upset that White went in for the kill. He thinks they could have just scared them off. White advises him not to get too soft-hearted, explaining that in the world of Tian gang trial, you have to be willing to go all the way, even if it means taking lives. Meanwhile, back to our fighting femmes, Chu and the girl are still going at it, and boy, Chu is kicking butts and taking names. Chu thinks to herself that she has used too much power and needs to end the battle quickly. She unleashes a massive ball of fire, bringing their clash to an end. The tables have turned, and after a few verbal back and forths, she said encourages the girl with eye issues to surrender. The girl makes a run for it, and Psycho Kid joins her, claiming the battle was boring and he'd rather be watching Netflix. He mentions they achieved what they came for and that his parents will be eliminated soon enough. His eyes gleam as he steps through his portal. Goodness gracious, that kid gives me the heebie-jeebies. Chu is relieved they've left and grateful for her newfound power. The scene shifts to Chu's castle where Fang Tian and another Tian-level person are in a showdown. What's really amusing is that the guy seems more worried about looking handsome than the actual battle. His battle cry has changed from WeChat, WeChat, WeChat to be handsome, be handsome, be handsome. Suddenly, a girl attacks Fang Tian from behind, but it doesn't land as White shields her. White and the guy engage in a fierce fight, while Chang Tian takes a different path with Fang Xin. In the midst of their strategic moves, Chang Tian believes their plan is foolproof. However, the enemy unveils a surprise, rendering their efforts useless. Suddenly, a slashing sound pierces the air, and as the scene unfolds, we witness a brief flashback of Fang Xin losing her master. It's a sad scene. Reality hits, and it becomes apparent that the person who got slashed is none other than Fang Xin herself, bravely shielding her master, Chang Tian. The story takes us back to what appears to be a battlefield from Fang Xin's past with her master. In a fierce exchange, Fang Xin manages to retaliate against the girl who stabbed her. Fang Xin falls, but Chang Tian catches her with her last words. She asks him for words of affection, and slowly she breaths her last breath. Yep, Fang Tian's time in this series seems short-lived. As we return to the ongoing battle, it's now the silver-haired guy, aka Mr. Be Handsome, and White's turn to get serious. The silver-haired guy proves to be undeniably strong as the battle rages on. Amidst the intense fight, Chang Tian finds himself in tears on the other side, burdened with guilt over Fang Xin's loss. White asks him to pull it together and stop blubbering like a baby, but Chang Tian is lost in his grief. It seems like Chang Tian's team is on the brink of defeat when out of nowhere, 2 stars burst in the sky, and 2 swords flash through the air. To everyone's surprise, those swords are none other than Mo Yi and Ganjiang, followed by Miss Chu herself. Chu checks on Fang Xin and reveals that she's still alive, but here's the twist. Chu has turned Fang Xin into a tiny weapon, ensuring her survival. Chu expresses gratitude towards Chang Tian for saving her by informing the 3 other swords to assist her with their spirit power after her battle. She assures him that he's not a failure. It's time to put on his big boy pants and return the favor by ending their battle with the rest of those pesky Tians and Hall stalkers. Talk about a dramatic turn of events and a powerful comeback. Mo Yi and Ganjiang move real fast, grabbing that silver-haired guy. Now, he's puzzled, wondering how come White, just a D-level sword, is holding his ground against a big shot like him, a Tian level. But Tian bro is stubborn. This dude won't give up. He pulls out all the stops, saying he's got this ultimate move that's gonna be the showstopper. All of a sudden, the silver-haired dude turns into a powerhouse, and it makes Chang Tian feel kinda uneasy. He's got this gut feeling that trouble's brewing. Chang Tian suggests Chu should call off her weapon to avoid a mess. Out of nowhere, the silver-haired guy starts muttering and mumbling, and suddenly bam! The stars align, and there's this seriously strong light, wind, or lightning swirling around him. He calls it creation slash, saying he's untouchable now. It kind of reminds me of Goku's Kamehameha attack. Crazy powerful with loads of blue light. Sounds like dude is shouting Excalibur be my strength. Ha, but surprise, White stands there looking cooler than ever, just casually stopping the star power with his bare hands. The silver-haired guy thought he had this unbeatable move, but White's like, not today, Satan. Chang Tian can't just twiddle his thumbs, so he puts on his thinking cap and takes charge. He slashes his hand with Fang Tian, who's now turned into a tiny weapon thing. She reminds me of the world's fanciest toothpick, and he pushes his hand against White, using blood magic to support White's spirit power. White's not exactly thrilled about it, knowing it might put Chang Tian in harm's way, but he has no other choice. Together, they stand their ground against the star's power. It's a risky move, but Chang Tian's quick thinking, the power of the blood, and White's confidence make this showdown against the supposedly unbeatable foe a real nail-biter. They manage to absorb the star's power through a yin and yang fusion move orchestrated by White, leaving everyone astonished at how White could pull off such a feat. In the midst of it all, Chang Tian passes out and White claims he sacrificed himself for this move. White, ever ready with an insult, calls him a big fool. As a reward for their efforts, White reveals his last move, which turns out to be kind of cringe-worthy. It leaves everyone wondering what in the world is happening in this anime. White unleashes a powerful light and finally conquers his enemy. The defeated foe crumples, and then OT and Bro transforms the silver-haired guy into a tiny weapon and takes off with his accomplice. Shu rushes to Chang Tian, looking more worried than ever. Meanwhile, Nolan Bro is fleeing but suspicious. He complains, telling OT and Bro that something is off. Out of nowhere, White appears in the background, and just as dude was about to tell us what's really good, he swiftly stabs him in the back. Initially, I thought this anime was cringy, but it turns out that it's filled with crazy twists and turns. The episode closes with the guy fearing for his life while staring at what appears to be White. The scene then cuts to lightning striking, revealing two men standing outside a shrine. Probably for Nolan Bro, rest in peace. One of the guys is holding a purple sword, dressed in a purple outfit with purple hair. Very rock and roll. This guy turns out to be the chairman everyone has been talking about. So this is the chief. Before OT and Bro can explain, Mr. Yi makes an entrance and drops a piece of news on the chairman. It seems Mr. Yi is hinting at the recent clash involving Chu and Chang Tian, and it's pretty evident that the chairman's messengers didn't fare too well in that showdown. Well, that sends the chairman into a fit of rage, swearing vengeance against those responsible. Now, Mr. Yi dives a bit deeper into the situation, unveiling that if they managed to take down the Chus, it would bring some sort of closure to the late Mr. Nolan. The chairman storms off, grumbling about how he's going to educate these troublemakers on the consequences of crossing paths with Tianzin Hall. This declaration from the chairman brings a wicked grin to Mr. Yi's face. If this masked man isn't suspicious, then I don't know what is. Now, it's a bit unclear whether Mr. Yi is playing for the chairman's team or Chang Tian's side. The only thing that's certain is that there's some complex alliance or scheme at play. Tensions are rising and mysteries are piling up, making me wonder where these alliances will lead and what consequences lie ahead in this intriguing storyline. Now, the scene shifts to Chu's mansion and Chang Tian looks like he's in some kind of hospital room. He's just chilling in bed, reading a book, with Fangshan now turned into a weapon standing nearby. Out of the blue, Chu storms in with a barrage of questions about how he's holding up and just what was he thinking using blood as spirit power. She goes on to say what Chang Tian pulled off during the battle was crazy risky, but Chang Tian, being his nonchalant self, didn't really dwell on it much. There's a hint of embarrassment on his face for his daring moves, and just when things are getting interesting, in walks this tanned, sultry-looking girl with vibrant purple hair, on the hunt for Miss Chu. What a beauty! The girl playfully teases Chu by asking why she looks so happy, which makes Chu all flustered, and she blurts out that it's not what the girl thinks. Chang Tian is feeling the same embarrassment and urges the girl not to get the wrong idea. Then Chang Tian quizzes the girl on how things are going and the girl cheerfully responds with a big yes. Things are almost ready. Now Chu's left scratching her head, trying to figure out what on earth they're chatting about. She turns to Chang Tian, bombarding him with questions about what he's up to and what they're referring to. Chang Tian answers respectfully. He explains that Chu's mansion is strategically positioned, sort of like sitting on a spirit ley line. So in his grand plan, he's using this setup to boost up their defense. Chu is totally wowed by Chang Tian's idea and gives him some well-deserved praise. She's very impressed as he's made significant progress despite being new to this magical lifestyle. But humble Chang Tian brushes it off, saying he's just doing his part to chip in for the rent for his stay at Chu's house. Out of the blue, another weapon pops up rocking some stylish blue hair and blurts out that they're coming. Chu's naturally curious, asking who they are. Blue-haired dude spills it. It's none other than Jan Lu himself, on his way to pay them a visit. The guy goes on to explain that Jan Lu is with Han O Tian and Lim Ruming, and they're chilling on the hill behind Chu's house. Chu and Chang Tian are taken aback by this unexpected visit and even more so by Jan Lu's personal appearance. It prompted Chang Tian to get out of bed, urging everyone to calm down and assess the situation first. He wonders aloud why someone as significant as Jan Lu would bother with them. Chu is trying to make sense of it, insisting there must be a misunderstanding. However, Chang Tian doesn't think it's a simple mix-up. Then out of the woods, Jan Lu and two others emerge. Chu sensed hostility and described them as downright murderous.